In our discussions in all previous videos, we dealt with only one data table, which is the transactions table. However, in some situation, you might need to work with more than one data table. The question then is, can you establish a relationship between two or more data tables? We shall investigate this issue in this video. Let's return to our working Excel file and perform all these steps. Go to Data, Get Data from File, from Text or CSV file. Go to our Active Directory, which contain the CSV files. So this time, we need to select footmod returns 1997 to 1998 and import it. Okay, as usual, we need to choose transform data. Okay, change the name of this table to returns. Okay, change the name to returns. No other changes are needed for this file. So let's choose close and load, select close and load to. Only create connection and add this data to the data model. Press OK. Okay, as you can see, the returns table has been loaded into our queries and connections. Let's go to our Power Pivot, Manage. Okay, so the returns table has been added. So let's go to our diagram view to manage the relationships. Okay, so what I want you to do now is that to put this returns tables next to your transactions table. So go to the Power Pivot window and select diagram view, which we have just did, and establish the following relationships. So you need to link return to calendar lookup using the return date key. Do the same for product lookup and store lookup. Okay, return date to the date in calendar lookup. Product ID in returns, link it to product ID in product lookup. Okay, remember that you need to left click, hold on this, drag it to the product ID under product lookup to establish the relationship. And the last one is store ID. So store ID, left click, hold, and drag it to store ID in store lookup. So similarly, right, the three relationships have been created. So this is a one-to-many relationship, similar to what you see in the transactions table. There are a few points to note here. The first is that the newly added returns table can access region lookup via store lookup. Let's see. So the returns table can access the region lookup via the store lookup. So even though the returns table do not have a region ID, it can also access the information in the region lookup via the store lookup table. This is similar to what you saw earlier under the transactions table. Secondly, this returns table does not have customer information and does not have any direct linkage with this lookup table. This returns table does not have any linkage to customer lookup, right? You cannot establish any link between this returns data table with customer lookup. Hence, there is no way for returns table to access the customer lookup table, either directly or indirectly. Finally, and most importantly, never try to establish a direct linkage or relationship between two or more data tables. For example, if you try to link transactions and returns, Excel will return an error message. They can, however, have indirect linkage via lookup tables. So what this means is that, as you can see here, we have never established a direct linkage between these two data tables, the transactions and returns, because in Excel this is not allowed. Let's try out one example. Right? We try to link it using the return date and the transaction date. What would happen? So Excel will give an error message. This kind of relationship cannot be created because each column contains duplicate values. Select at least one column that contains only unique values. What it means is that these two data tables have a lot of redundant dates, right? Dates that are repeated, because these are data tables, so they will have redundant data. So in this kind of situation, you cannot establish a direct linkage between these two tables, or you cannot establish a many-to-many cardinality. It's the same thing with the product ID, right? If you try to link them together, you will get the same error message. Okay, the same with quantity ID, store IDs. Okay, so you get the same error message. So this is essentially what we are trying to tell you in this video, right? You cannot establish direct relationship between these two data tables. You can, however, right, establish an indirect relationship between these two. So for example, returns, right, can have a linkage with transactions via one of these lookup tables. For example, right, you have returns being linked to the calendar lookup. So you can have an access via calendar lookup and then have an indirect connections to transactions. So the same thing with product lookup, because you have a direct relationship between returns and product lookup. So you can go through product lookup and then reach transactions. So this is what we call an indirect relationship between two data tables. This is allowed in Excel, but you can never establish a direct link between two data tables. So this is the message that we want to emphasize in this video.